What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Sideswipe the Boss, back at it again with another tier list. So I decided to step out of Marvel and DC for a bit and go to one of my other favorite fandoms, and that today will be the Star Wars main characters. And of course, it's not going to be every single character in Star Wars. We'd be here all day, but I just decided to go over the main characters, like the main three trilogies. I will not include Rogue One or Solo in this one because, once again, they have a lot of characters in them too, and we would be here all day if we did that. So I'm just doing the Star Wars main characters from the primary three trilogies. And if you do go to enjoy this video, just hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. So first up, we have Darth Maul. He was like a villain in Phantom Menace, which was episode 1, and he was criminally underused. It was ridiculous. I mean, he was awesome when he showed up. He's basically one of the two good parts in the Phantom Menace. That movie was so bad, but he was one of the good parts. I mean, he was awesome. That double-bladed lightsaber was awesome. I think he only spoke like twice, I think. But other than that, he was awesome nonetheless. But he is going to probably go lower than he should be because of his criminally underusage. So he'll end up in the B tier. Next up, we have Bail Organa. He's Leia's pops, and he's also like a friend to Padme back in the prequel trilogy. And he was just there, kind of, to be honest. I mean, he had a decent storyline in episode 3, but that wasn't really much on its own anyway either. So he was honestly just there to give Leia a father, to be honest. So, well, like a stepfather or surrogate or whatever he was. So he's just gonna go in like the D tier for me. Next up, we have Chewbacca, and Chewbacca's awesome. How can you go wrong with Chewbacca? I mean, he was only in episode 3 of the prequels, and he was just there for fan service, honestly. Even though I do like some good fan service, he was just there for that. He was great in the original trilogy, and, you know, he was like one of the staples of the sequel trilogy that kept them watchable and sometimes even good. So for me, he's going to end up in the A tier. I don't know if he's going to be at the top, but definitely A tier for Chewbacca. Next up, we have General Grievous, and he was also a villain in episode 3. And he was alright in episode 3. He's much better in the Clone Wars for sure, but I'll probably do that in a later tier list. But I'm just counting his time in like the live action Star Wars movies. And he was alright. I mean, the 4 lightsabers was cool. That fight with ObiWan was cool. I like that. So he'll go in the C tier for me. I don't think he'll be at the top of the C tier though. Next up, we have Boba Fett. And Boba Fett, he was alright to me, to be honest. Just because he was also underused. He could have been awesome if he wasn't underused. But he was only in like 2 episodes. Not even a full 2 episodes. Like, in the beginning of 6, he was taken out so easily. It was very disappointing. Even though there is a possibility that he might show up in The Mandalorian Season 2, which might rectify that a little bit. But until then, he was just an alright character to me. I mean, he had a cool suit. He was kind of mysterious too. But other than that, he was just alright. So he's also going to go in the C tier, but above General Grievous. Next up, we have Boba's father, Jango Fett, who also only appeared in like 1 episode. It was episode 2, one of the worst Star Wars movies. I mean, he was one of the better parts of it because he was kind of awesome. I mean, he did also kind of get taken out a little pathetically by Mace, but, you know, it was kind of better than how Boba got taken out. But other than that, he was pretty much the same as Boba. He's kind of mysterious, you know. He was the model for the clone, so I guess I like that aspect of him. So he was just a tad bit cooler than Boba. But he's also going to go in the C tier, but above Boba. Next up, we have Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious. And man, oh man, oh man, this might be a controversial one because he was awesome in like the prequel trilogy. He was cool. He was cool in the prequel trilogy. When he showed up at the end of episode 6, that was awesome. Well, during episode 6, that was awesome to me, to be honest. But then when he came back in episode 9, look, like I said, I do love some fan service, but honestly, and putting Palpatine in episode 9 was just a ploy to get people back to Star Wars after everyone was leaving because of The Last Jedi. So, I mean, it didn't make sense story-wise, but I see why they did it. But nonetheless, he's a pretty cool character, so he's going to go in the B tier. I don't know if he'll end up at the top, though, or even the top half. Next up, we have Mace Windu, and he was a pretty cool character, played by the famous, Sam Jackson, so there's points right there. I mean, he was alright, too. He didn't do anything in episode 1. Episode 2, he was alright. I mean, he did have that big fight scene with all the other Jedi in episode 2. In episode 3, he did get taken out, which was kind of bogus, but, they got to do what they got to do. So, for me, he's also going to go in the B tier, but between Darth Maul and Palpatine, because he was a pretty good character when he actually did stuff. Next up, we have Finn, and he was like that stormtrooper who betrayed the First Order in the sequel trilogy. And he's a good character to me. I think he's like my favorite character of the sequel trilogy. I mean, he was great in episode 7. Episode 8, he was wasted, honestly, and I can't forgive Rian Johnson for that, because he was very wasted, not especially, but until the end where he fought Phasma. And then in episode 9, he was pretty good. He wasn't as good as he was in episode 7, but it was still good nonetheless. But he is my favorite, I could say second favorite sequel trilogy character. So he's going to go probably at like the bottom of the A tier. Next up, we have Count Dooku, and he was alright for when he showed up. Just like General Grievous, he is much, much better in Star Wars The Clone Wars, but only counting his live action time in Star Wars, he was alright. I mean, he had a pretty cool fight scene at the end of episode 2 and in the beginning of episode 3, which is basically all he did in the live action Star Wars. So he's probably going to go at the top of the C tier for me. I did go back because I forgot to add someone, and now my order is kind of different, but it's okay. Next up, we have C-3PO, and he kind of varied throughout the trilogies. In the prequel one, he didn't really do much. He was great and funny in the original trilogy. And in the sequel trilogy, I mean, he didn't do much in Force Awakens, didn't do much in The Last Jedi, and he was kind of funny in the Rise of Skywalker. So for me, he's gonna go in the C tier. He'll go at the top of the C tier. Hey, C for C-3PO. How about that? Next up, we have Luke Skywalker, and he's a great, great character. I mean, he was the token character of the original trilogy. Story mainly focused around him, and he was awesome then. It was a pretty cool scene at the end of Force Awakens, even though he was just standing there. For me, he was alright in The Last Jedi. I mean, he could have been done much, much better for sure. But he was alright for what he was given. So, he's going to go at the top of the A tier. Could have been S tier, but just because he was kind of wasted in The Last Jedi. Except at the end, though. So, maybe not wasted, but, he could have done a little better. He could have been done a little better. Next up, we have General Hux, and he was in the sequel trilogy. I mean, he was just there as like a competitor to Kylo, because he wanted to be in charge. And then he was the traitor in episode 9, which didn't make sense. Well, kind of, because he said he wanted to make Kylo lose, but it just didn't make sense story-wise. So, for me, he's also going to go in the D tier, but he'll go above Bale. Next up, we have Poe Dameron, and he was also in the sequel trilogy. He's kind of like the Han Solo of the group. And I mean, he's an alright character. He's definitely not the most compelling. He is the most daring, though. I do like that. And he does have some pretty funny moments as well. He's kind of like the funniest out of the trio in the sequel trilogy. So for me, I'll give him the bottom of the B tier. Next up, we have Padme. Now look, hear me out. I have nothing against Natalie Portman. She is a great actress. But I didn't care for Padme a lot. She was alright in episode 1 for sure. You know, she was the take charge queen, get into the action and stuff. That was alright. Episode 2 is when her character fell apart, when she fell in love for that whiny teenager Anakin Skywalker. And in episode 3, she was just a lovey-dovey crying baby mama. And it was ridiculous, honestly. Her character dropped so much. She could have been awesome, but she really wasn't. She kind of contributed to why people don't like the prequels, honestly. But for me, she's gonna also go in the D tier, but the bottom of the D tier, because like I said, it was unfortunate how her character fell. Next up, we have Kylo Ren. And Kylo Ren was the best part of the sequel trilogy. I mean, he was so awesome in The Force Awakens. I don't care that he took off his helmet and revealed babyface Adam Driver. He was awesome. In The Last Jedi, he was pretty cool too. And in The Rise of Skywalker, he was awesome again as well. He's the best thing about the sequel trilogy by far. So he's going to go in the S tier for sure. Next up, we have Lando Calrissian. You know, he was like the funny man of the little group in the original trilogy. Not really a part of the trio because he did show up later, but he was still a cool character then. And he just showed up in The Rise of Skywalker for fan service, honestly. Didn't really help in the story at all. So he's also going to go in the C tier, but I'll put him right below C-3PO. Next up, we have Jar Jar Binks. Holy moly, roly poly oly. Wow. George Lucas must have dug into the dark, deep dungeons of his deranged brain to pull this character out of a hat, because my goodness gracious me, I've never met a character so annoying. Oh wow, I don't even want to go over him more. Y'all know why he's going in the F tier. I don't need to explain myself. So, going from one of the worst characters in Star Wars to my personal favorite in Star Wars, we have ObiWan Kenobi, and he's awesome. He's my favorite part of the prequel trilogy. He's just awesome, especially in episode 3. He does a lot in episode 3, and it's awesome, amazing. You know, he shows up as Ben in episode 4. He's a pretty cool mentor to Luke. And I think that's it, yeah. And he shows up as like Force Ghost here and there in episode 5 and 6. But he's just an awesome character. Ewan McGregor in the prequel trilogy especially, he is great and amazing in the role. And if this Obi-Wan Kenobi series actually starts picking up some ground, I'm already super excited for it, and I just can't wait for it to actually pick up some ground and we get some stuff or info about it. But other than that, definitely the top of the S tier, Mr. Kenobi. Next up, we have Princess Leia, and Princess Leia is awesome. I can agree with you guys on that. She is awesome. I mean, she's awesome in the original trilogy, and she is actually pretty good in the sequel trilogy. Not as good as she is in the original trilogy, but pretty decent nonetheless. R.I.P. Carrie Fisher, though. She'll always be our princess. Rest in peace. So, for me, she's going to go in the bottom of the A tier. Next up, we have Qui Gon Jinn, and he was just an character to me. I mean, honestly, did he really need to be in the movie? I mean, he's never mentioned by Obi-Wan, at least a lot, after his death. and he doesn't do a lot. I mean, he does pick up Anakin for sure, so I give him that. But other than that, he's just there. Then he dies. So he's going to go in the top of the D tier. I didn't really care for his character that much. Next up, we have my boy R2-D2. And yes, I know R2's technically a droid, but I'm giving this droid some characterization. And he is my favorite droid nonetheless. So he's definitely going to go in the S tier. And if y'all don't agree with it, I don't care. It's my opinion, not yours. Tough. Next up, we have Han Solo. And he was awesome. Awesome in the original trilogy. He was pretty good in the sequel trilogy. He had a decent role in Force Awakens. And I did like his little cameo in The Rise of Skywalker. So that was some welcome fan service. So he's also going to go in the A tier. But he'll just go below Luke. Next up, we have BB-8. And I'm giving this droid also some characterization. Even though he's not as good as R2, I still like him nonetheless. So he's going to go... I'll just put him in like the mid B tier. B for BB-8. Would you look at that? Next up, we have the GOAT, Darth Vader. And man, oh man. Do I have to explain myself why Darth Vader is going in the S tier? I don't think so. He's just awesome. The GOAT. After ObiWan, of course. But yeah, y'all know why he's there. Next up, we have Rose, and she's like the Jar Jar of the sequel trilogy. She's annoying. She pulled Finn away from the action in The Last Jedi in the most pointless storyline ever. I mean, she didn't technically pull him away, but they were in the storyline together, and I didn't care for her at all whatsoever. So she's also going to go in the F tier, but above Jar Jar. Next up, we have Anakin Skywalker, and contrary to popular belief, I actually like Anakin. Not too much, but he's actually a pretty good character. Not great or amazing or anything, but just good. I mean, he was just okay in the first one. In the second one, I didn't care for him in the second one. I'll give y'all that. Honestly, he didn't do too much except being a whiny, kind of horny teenager, honestly. And I think in the third one, that's when he really peaked. He was pretty awesome in episode 3. I mean, of course, it's about him transforming, but he was still cool nonetheless. So for me, Anakin is going to go in the middle of the B tier. Actually, no, I'll put him right below Darth Maul, because I like Anakin a lot more than most people do. Next up, we have Captain Phasma, another criminally underused character in the sequel trilogy. I mean, she has a raw suit, but she barely did anything in the sequel trilogy. She only had that one fight scene in episode 8, and she was taken out really easily, honestly. So she's going to go at the bottom of the C tier. It's sad. She could have been so much more awesome than she really was. Next up, we have Rey, the token character of the sequel trilogy. And, I mean, she definitely got better as the movies got along. I honestly didn't care for her too much, but like I said, she does get better as the movies do go along. She does have a pretty cool, backstory and a pretty cool hero's journey. So, for me, I'll put her at the bottom of the B tier, because she wasn't bad or anything. She was pretty cool at times for sure, but not awesome or anything. Next up, we have the homie Yoda. No, not baby Yoda, just Yoda. And he was a pretty awesome character. I mean, in the original trilogy, he was cool. He was just training Luke, but that was his purpose, and he did good at that. In the prequel trilogy, they turned him into a CGI character. I mean, I can understand why people didn't like that. I actually didn't mind he was CGI. I mean, he was cool nonetheless in the prequel trilogy. And he was pretty cool when he showed up in the sequel for that little cameo in episode 8. So, for me, Yoda's going to go the bottom of the A tier. And finally, we have Supreme Leader Snoke, who is another criminally underused bad guy in the sequel trilogy. I mean, they hyped him up so much in The Force Awakens. It was awesome. Then he showed up in The Last Jedi. I mean, he didn't look as awesome as he did in The Force Awakens, but he was still pretty cool nonetheless. Then they just kill him off, like, without no backstory, no indication, like, where'd he come from and stuff. And then in Episode 9, they just retconned it to where, oh, Emperor Palpatine actually created Snoke. So there we have it. But he was decent nonetheless when he was like the center of attention. So he's gonna go, I'll put him at like the mid C tier, just above Jango. And there we have it, folks. F tier, we have Rose and Jar Jar Binks. D tier, we have Qui Gon Jinn, Admiral Hux, Bail Organa, and Padme Amidala. C tier, we have C-3PO, Lando Calrissian, Count Dooku, Snoke, Jango Fett, Boba Fett, General Grievous, and Captain Phasma. B tier, we have Darth Maul, Anakin Skywalker, Mace Windu, BB-8, Emperor Palpatine, Poe Dameron, and Rey. A tier, we have Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Finn, Princess Leia, and Yoda. And in the S tier, we have ObiWan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Kylo Ren, and R2-D2. And that's all the time we have for today, folks. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about this list. Would you keep it the same or would you change it? Let me know that. Also, let me know in the comments, should I do a Star Wars The Clone Wars tier list? I'm kind of thinking about doing it because, you know, Star Wars The Clone Wars is actually a great show. One of the best, you know, cartoon shows I've ever watched. So let me know if I should do that in the comments down below. I'm actually kind of thinking about doing it. But let me know if I should confirm my yes. And if you do like this video, just hit that like button. Takes 2 seconds, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. And I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.